guys, Art's Backpacking 360. I hope everybody is doing well today. We are going to take a look at backpacking stoves today. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of just kind of a highlights on two different varieties, white gas stoves and canister stoves. All right, there are a lot of other stoves out on the market. There are cat can stoves that are primarily alcohol burners, and they're made from everything from cat cans to Pepsi cans to tuna fish cans to beer cans. Some of them are really super high tech. You can buy them retail at your local outfitter, different types, and they work great. They've got their downsides. There are what they call gasification stoves. There are wood-burning stoves that use a forced air little motor and a fan. They're pretty neat also. A lot of different things, but if you go into your local outfitter and you're new to backpacking, and most of my videos are directed at entry-level backpackers, these are what I recommend, and this is chances are what the sales guy is going to recommend to you when you go in. Mainly because they're easier to use and they burn clean and they're nice. So we're going to touch on these two primarily because this is the lion's share of what most people use. By all means, it is not everything that's available out there. If you're just starting out backpacking, I would choose one of these two, but take a look at everything. You never know, you might want something different. So, white gas stoves. Let's hit on some of the high points of the typical white gas stove. Okay, this is a MSR Whisperlight, MSR Dragonfly. This is an MSR Whisperlight, and the highlights to these guys are as such. If you're backpacking in an area where it is really super cold, that they're going to be backpacking in the snow, these guys do great in the snow and really cold temperatures, okay? They're almost imperative. If you're going to be in freezing cold temperatures, you're going to have to use one of these guys. High altitude. They work much, much better at high altitude. When you get above 10,000 feet, these guys perform better. All right, now that's not black and white, where as soon as you hit 10,000 feet, these guys don't work. That's not the case. That's just kind of a generalization. All right. The other upside to these guys is that you can take any amount of fuel that you need based on the trip that you're doing. If you're going for a couple of nights, you know, you can take a little guy like this. If you're going for a week, you can take something like that. If you're going backpacking like forever, you can take a really big guy like that. And they all work great. They all do the same thing. All right. Oh my gosh, let's see. So downsides to these guys is right off the top. One other thing I wanted to mention, upside. These guys accept windscreens, okay, that basically goes on there like that. All right. And we'll get into why these guys don't in a minute, which is really nice. If you're in an area where there's a lot of wind and you don't want to fight with the wind, these guys accept windscreens. To me, windscreens are overrated. I've been making them out of rocks and pieces of wood and what have you around my campsite most of my life, and I've never even used my windscreen. I tried it a couple times and it's just something I don't need. So, but depending on where you're at, again, there's times when it comes in really handy. All right. Downside, to me, that's a big, bulky stove compared to that. Okay, that's the difference. All right, that's a lot of weight. Of course, the legs on this guy all fold up, but regardless, it's still big and bulky. It's going to be heavier. The other downside is, and because I've done a couple of retakes, that might be hot, but they get sooty. Okay, so you got to deal with a little bit of soot and dirt, which is not a major issue. The other downside is this is the pump that goes inside this bottle, and it has a lot of moving parts. All right, it's primarily made of plastic, which means it's breakable. This one is actually broken. I've got a tab on here that's broken, and it still works, but I wouldn't want to take it out into the woods and use it. So plastic, it's breakable. There's a lot of seals and little rubber O-rings in here. These things have to be maintained, and they do make kits that you can purchase where you get an assortment of little O-rings, and then you kind of add to the collection with a safety pin and different things that you need. You need to learn how to take this thing apart, and the whole thing disassembles and comes apart. There's a pump seal in here that needs to be maintained. So you got to know how to, if you're not mechanically inclined, you might not like this idea. But if you're going to be backpacking in the snow or what have you, then you need to learn how to use it. But like I said, they got a lot of moving parts. You need to know how to take it apart and put it back together again, and fix it in the field, or you will not have any hot food for however many days you're out there. All right. Gosh, that pretty much covers it for the good sides and the bad sides, I think, on white gas stoves. I don't really use mine. Haven't used them for years until I decided to start doing these videos, and voila, now I use them for the videos. Great, huh? So, okay, let's move on to take a look at canister stoves. The upsides to a canister stove is right there. It is small, it's lightweight, and it is really easy to use. How easy is it to use? Well, you screw it onto your canister, okay? You turn the little valve, and you're going. That's it right there. Put your pot on there and forget about it. You don't have to do anything, all right? That's how easy it is to use a canister stove. And they all work the same. It just screws on there. This one's even got a piezo lighter on there, so I can screw it on. I don't even have to use my match. And this little piezo lighter actually works really good. I've been using this guy for a couple of seasons now, and I really like it. All right. So the upside, they're super lightweight. They're super easy to use. They're small. There's no moving parts. Most of these guys have got all metal in them, so it's not something that's going to chip or break. This pocket rocket I used for years, and it never gave me a problem. I never had to do anything to it. It still works great. Okay. The downside, there's downsides to these guys, unfortunately. Wish there weren't, but there are. You get well above 10,000 feet, these guys do not perform as well. You'll find yourself shaking the canister to get it to work right. On some of the older models, on this little DeSoto, or Soto I think it's called, Soto, they're supposed to be designing them now that they work better so that you don't have those issues, but you still will, okay? I used it on the John Muir and some of the high passes where I was cooking noodles and such. It was a little bit touchy. They also do not work well at all in super cold temperatures. If you're going to be backpacking in the snow, you're not going to want to use one of these guys, okay? I've gone out, and even in cold weather where I get up in the morning, you end up having to take the bottle and unscrew it and put it in your sleeping bag at night before you go to bed to keep it warm, and then when you get up in the morning, bring it out, keep it in a pants pocket or something, and set it up and get to cooking right away, because once that chills back down and gets super cold, they don't work well. So if you're going to be in the snow, count these guys out. They're not going to do it for you, okay? The other downside is that you cannot take a custom amount of fuel with you like you can with these guys, all right? And by that I mean if you go out for a week-long trip, you're going to take two small, they actually have canisters smaller than this, and that's what I use. You take out two canisters, you go out for a week, you come back, your canister is 3/4 of the way empty. Well, these things are more expensive to purchase, these canisters, than the white gas. So one of these guys will cost you probably $5, $6, $7, whatever, depending on where you get it. So you don't want to waste the fuel. So you'll come back with 1/4 of a canister. When you go back out again on your next trip, you'll take 2 more full canisters for your week-long trip, plus that partial that you came back with from your previous trip. And you're going to use it up within the first probably 24 hours just to finish it off. And now you've got an empty canister that you got to carry around for the next week. Kind of a pain in the butt. And you can't really flatten these guys out on the trail. I tried it once years ago, and the oil that they mix in there with the fuel so that you know whether or not it's leaking stinks. And it will seep and stink no matter what you do. You can put it in Ziploc baggies. The smell will follow you around. So you basically leave it full, leave the canister intact until you get it home, and then if you want to smash it or whatever, you can. They make a tool now for popping the tops off these guys. I was always worried that I was going to smash it and the spark would ignite and the whole thing would blow up on me. So that's the scoop on that. The other downside to these guys is that you cannot use a windscreen on these, all right? On these particular models. The reason being is you have now locked in your fuel with your fuel source, all right? You lock all that in there together, put a pot on top of that, you're opening yourself up for a real problem. Now they do make a newer model out there, there's a couple of them out there, where the burner unit sits on legs off to the side with a little line that goes out and hooks up to the top of your canister. But then you're getting into extra metal, extra weight, extra moving parts. If you're going to use a canister, I prefer these guys, and I just make my own little windscreen out of some rocks and what have you around my campsite. I've never had a problem with it. So I think that covers it. If you guys have any questions, you can check me out on Arts Backpacking 360 on Facebook. Drop me any notes. Let me know what you think, good, bad, or otherwise. Check out my other videos. I'm just getting started with this, so be patient with me. I'm still trying to get the handle on it. We've got a great trip coming up to the Trinity Alps here shortly that should be really cool. And of course, videos are going to all mix in with one another, so stating a certain date that I'm going to be doing something, I guess, is kind of redundant. So that covers it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.